Welcome back to Mets Daily. I'm your host, Jake Brown, at Jake Brown Live. Hit that thumbs up on the video. Keep on commenting. We'll read your comment at the end of today's show. Mets Daily shows where you get us on Twitter as well. Appreciate your support. The Mets should consider bringing back Griffin Canning. You know, Griffin Canning was a revelation for this team. Remember when they signed Griffin Canning to that 1 year, $4 million deal, and we all said, what the hell are the Mets doing? This guy was the worst pitcher in baseball. And then the pitching lab that the Mets kind of got rid of with Jeremy Hefner, we hope that Willard will keep this going here. He turned him around. He turned him into a heavy ground ball pitcher, changed up his pitch mix, and all of a sudden Griffin Canning was a steal for the 1 year, $4 million they got him. Unfortunately, at the end of June, on June 26th, he ruptured his Achilles. That is about a 9-month recovery. That puts him around May. I think June would be the latest he returns, but I think after rehabbing and after getting back to normal, I would think Memorial Day, June is the latest we see Griffin Canning. So you'll get pretty much at least a half a season or more if you go out and get Griffin Canning. But, after tweaking up his pitch mix and the advice of the Mets staff, the guy posted a career best 50.9 ground ball percentage. And when you think about up the middle in the Mets defense, now the corners leave a little bit to be desired if it ends up being Bichette, Polanco at the corners. But up the middle, when you think about Lindor, Simeon, and Luis Robert in center, you love a ground ball pitcher. Because if he's in ground ball to short or second, it's going to get scooped by two Gold Glovers. And if he's hitting at center field, it's going to get caught by Luis Robert. So I like Griffin Canning if you get him on a nice 1 year, maybe $2-3 million deal. I don't see why not. I don't think it would hurt the Mets, especially assuming there might be injuries. Why not bring Griffin Canning back? Let us know in the comments what you think about Griffin Canning. And, should they consider bringing him back? One guy I also think the Mets should consider signing is Tommy Kahnle. When you look at what's left on the reliever market, listen, there's not a lot of names that stand out there in terms of free agency. If we just talk free agency, Nick Martinez, who's a starter and reliever, Chris Paddock, David Robertson, who will be 41, Brett Suter. Do the Mets want another lefty? You have Minter, you have Raley. Do you want another lefty in that pen? I'm not sure. Sewald, no thanks. Danny Coulomb, I'd be intrigued by another lefty. Andrew Chafin, who seems like the Mets are always tied to and never end up signing. John King, Scott Barlow, Joey Lucchesi, old friend. The names are very slim. Rafael Montero, old friend Jorge Lopez. But there's a name in there in the top 5-6 guys in terms of market value that intrigue me, and that's Tommy Kahnle. Here's a couple reasons why. One, he's a former Yankee. Carlos Mendoza knows him well from his Yankee days and working with him. Now, maybe he won't vouch for him. But Tommy Kahnle is 11 seasons in Major League Baseball to the tune of a 3.61 ERA. In 2022, limited time, 2.84. 2023, 2.66. 2024, 2.11. 2025, he did have a down year, 4.43, which is exactly why I think the Mets should sign him. Because David Stearns loves getting those guys coming off a down year but have a career track record of success. Tommy Kahnle has a career track record of success. Yes, he has had injuries in his career, but why not a 1 year deal take a flyer as a potential middle reliever guy? And, obviously to become the New York Yankees when you think about a potential Kahnle, Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, that back into the bullpen. Yeah, it's a lot of former Yankees, but if they're good, why not? Like, who cares where they played? I don't think you should factor in, they were a Yankee, I don't want them. Tommy Kahnle, I would consider on a 1 year deal. The negatives, injuries. He is 36 years old, towards the back end of his career, but I still think he has something in the tank, as of course these snow blowers out the only 15 minutes of the day while I record the show. I mean, even here in South Jersey, in suburbia, you can't avoid noise going on everywhere. It sounds like I'm in New York right now. Like, what's going on? Jesus Christ. Tommy Kahnle, they talked about at the end of the season, he got his signature changeup back. And towards the end of the season, he really started to figure it out after, yes, he did struggle a bit. And I think when this guy is on, he's got some nasty stuff. And I think he developed confidence towards the end of last season that make him a real obvious, return to normal kind of candidate in terms of, yeah, he struggled, but look at, some of the deeper metrics, all those things. And in the month of September, Tommy Kahnle allowed 4 earned runs. So he had stretches he was bad. He had stretches he was good. But the month of June, Tommy Kahnle 3 earned runs. The month of May, 3 earned runs. The month of April, 1 earned run. So, he had multiple months where he was really good last year. It was really the month of July that screwed him, where he gave up 16 runs, 7, 8. He had a couple of implosions that really ballooned his ERA. So, one more bullpen piece. I think Tommy Kahnle is a guy that would make a lot of sense. A guy that could make sense at the bullpen, too, is Christian Scott. I think a lot of people, and I mentioned before, sleep on Christian Scott. He had Tommy John surgery in 2024. He's been ready to pitch. He is good to go, and he's been working out. The question is, how long will it take him to get comfortable, and what is his role? Because obviously the Mets have a bunch of starting pitchers. Christian Scott, I think, is a reason why you can afford maybe trading a Peterson or a Senga, because if you need to use Christian Scott in the rotation, you can. If you need to use Tobias Myers in the rotation, you can. So to me, you cannot sleep on Christian Scott, who was once touted as a top Mets prospect, and then Tommy John's surgery took away his 2025 season. He doesn't have a ton of starts under his belt. I think he has a lot of room to grow. This is a guy that, had 9 starts in 2024 for the Mets and looked decent. A 4.56 ERA, but, I thought he looked pretty decent. And in Syracuse that year, he had a 2.76 ERA. This is a guy that kind of rose the rankings fairly quickly. 2023, single A, double A, 2024, triple A, and then after 9 triple A starts, he was in the majors. So did not have a ton of experience. I think you're going to see him in triple A in April, May, and then I think by the summer, you're going to see Christian Scott, whether it's as a long reliever or as a starting pitcher, as part of the Mets, and I would not sleep on him. He's got really nasty off-speed stuff. I think he's had a lot of time to work on this return, and, it's been over a year now. It's about 14, 15 months since Tommy John, so he is locked and loaded, ready to go. And I have trouble seeing him making the opening day roster, but I do think he's going to be part of the Mets' plans by the summertime. All right, folks, let's get to your comments from Wednesday's show. And again, thank you so much for all our new subscribers. We're at 3850 now. Thank you. The Salicata episode has now reached over 15,000 views. That is a record for Mets Daily, so we appreciate your support. Let's get to your comments from yesterday's show. Let's go to Los FSC said, is Griffin Canning still on the roster? He's a good 3 to 4 pitcher. There you go. He's a free agent. And that's, like we said, they should take a flyer on him. So there you go. Ash Mars says, Vientos and Watson for a salary dump would be an insane haul for the A's. Feels like a crazy overpay. Yeah, I mean, listen, that's probably not right. If you want to look at money and what actually makes sense for the Mets here, Senga for Severino. In that case, that's 15 against 25. The Mets eat a little bit more to get Severino. Maybe the A's eat some of that. The A's get 2 years, $30 million of Senga. That, to me, probably makes more sense than what I said yesterday. Again, the more I've thought about it with Severino after thinking the last day, my philosophy is, why don't you wait till the deadline? And if you really need a starting pitcher, you get him. I don't think the Mets are in dire needs of a starting pitcher right now. They have 6 or 7 starters. Yeah, it might not be the greatest rotation ever, but I think it's good enough to win. And I think it's a lot of bounce-back candidates like a Sean Manaea. So my philosophy is, you know what? If it's late July, you have injuries, you need a starter, Luis Severino will be there for the taking. The A's will gladly trade him and his salary. And he has that player option. If he's pitching great and he has that player option, he's going to opt out and he becomes a rental. Then you're getting him for, one prospect potentially. He becomes a salary dump at that point for the A's, unless they're in a playoff race and he's pitching great. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. Oscar says, please no Severino horrific road numbers. Joe says, your birthday really is February 5th. So is mine. That's actually cool. Birthday twins. We share the same birthday, and we signed Pete last year on our birthday. That's cool. By the way, I'm not giving up Mark Vientos and a top 10 press prospect in our farm and taking the money for Severino. Yeah, I mean, listen, I agree. At that point, I said that yesterday. I take it back. It's not smart. It's not. But again, I've probably been hard on Vientos. But again, I just think now would be the time to trade him. I also have a feeling the Mets don't like his personality and ego. I do think he is one of those egomaniacs. The Mets traded a few or got rid of a few, traded a few. I think the Mets envision him working out elsewhere better. But if he's here, he's going to be on the Major League roster. He's either going to be a bench bat, part-time DH. That's what he is, though. He's a pinch hitter, DH. I don't think you're going to see him make one start at third base. Maybe he makes a few starts at first base, but you have Bichette, you have Beatty at third. I just don't see a role where Mark Vientos is going to play third. Nezzy765 says live chat would be cool after work. Yeah, we might do something like maybe a 6 p.m. live chat on like Thursday nights or something every week. Maybe we do an hour of that. Radar Louis says, just sign Miguel Andujar. Hold off on trading Vientos until trade deadline. Yeah, that's fair. I think maybe Mark Vientos proves he's got a little bit more value the first couple of months, and then he becomes a big trade piece. But to me, Miguel Andujar would be a no-brainer. But to me, also, if you're signing Miguel Andujar, you're getting rid of Vientos because they're similar roles. They're like part-time players and right-hand hitters. So I get Vientos provides you that power, but I think we're looking a little too much into power and the guy providing power. Talk 20 says, time to contact Harry's for a sponsor. Harry's Razors. I do need a razor sponsor because these razors get expensive, man. I got to shave every 2 to 3 days. It's expensive. We need some kind of sponsor for this bald head. All right, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Again, I take it back. Do not trade Watson and Vientos for Severino. At this point, wait till the deadline. And if you need a starter, go get Severino. Hit that thumbs up. Keep on commenting. Subscribe to the show. Share the show, please. And go follow me. Go subscribe to my YouTube right now. We appreciate it. I'll do a giveaway on there at some point. At Jake Brown Live. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as well. At Jake Brown Live. We will talk to you tomorrow on a Friday. Thanks for watching. Mets Daily.